Sad, he thought, but needed for his future plans. Robert leaves Sarah under a big tree where the branches protected some rain off. Millionaire leaves his disabled 3-year-old daughter by herself in a stormy forest. 25 years later, a successful doctor on crutches comes into his office. "Do you remember that rainy night?" she asks with a smile. "Hello, Father, I've come back for everything you took from me." Millionaire leaves his 3-year-old disabled daughter in the forest and walks off. 25 years later, rain came pouring down. That evening, the sky was dark and thunderclapped as Robert Stone, a successful businessman in a designer suit, clasped his little daughter deeper into the woods. Little Sarah was just 3 years old and could not walk. She was born with weak legs that did not work properly. "Daddy, I'm cold," Sarah cried, looking up at her father with trust in her eyes, her little arms clamped tight around his neck. Robert's face had no feeling his company was on the brink of signing a huge deal that would make him even richer. His new girlfriend, Lisa, was beautiful and had powerful friends, but she did not want to be the cause of another woman's disabled child. The doctor bills were too expensive. Sarah needed too much care. "A little bit more," he said, roughly, his voice difficult to hear above the storm. He entered a small, open area and glanced around. Nobody knew they were present. Nobody would locate her by morning. She would be vanished. It was a nothing enveloped her with a thin blanket he brought. "Where is Daddy going?" Sarah asked, afraid and puzzled. "I'll be back soon." Robert fibbed, his voice trembling a little. "Stay quiet in here." Sarah's eyebrow was filled with tears, but she nodded. "I'll be good girl," without looking back. Robert turned and moved away. Each step felt heavy. The rain was too hard. He could not hear Sarah's first cries when she was crying. For him, he was driving away in his car, and from his sin, as he boarded the highway, Robert decided Sarah Stone never existed. He would destroy all papers, all photographs. This was demanded by his better future, barely a kilometer away from there. Maria Jones was driving home from her late-night work shift at the small hospital where she worked as a nurse. The forest road was treacherous in this weather, but she was used to it when lightning flashed, lighting up the road. She saw something move where should be. Maria pulled over her nurse instincts rather than her fear of the storm. With a flashlight in hand, she went into the woods, calling out to whoever might be there. The soft sound of tears propelled her forward when her light and shone upon the little quivering boo and the tree. Maria's heart was shattered. "Oh no," she whispered, running to the girl. "What do you, little one?" Sarah was near blue with cold, her clothes dampening. "Daddy!" she grunted through chattering teeth. "Daddy, come back!" Maria wrapped the bundle in her coat and picked her up gently. "I've got you now. She promised you're safe." 25 years later, the stone tower dominated the middle of the city. At 62, Robert Stone had everything: billions of wealth, friends and politics, and a name. As a savvy businessman, his wife Lisa had granted him a son, Robert Jr., who was learning how to manage the family business in his office on the top floor. Robert looked over some papers when his assistant knocked. "Mr. Stone, there's a Dr. Sarah Jones here to visit you. She doesn't have an appointment time, but says it's important." Robert scowled. The name didn't ring a bell. What does she need? She tells him. It's personal, something about a hospital charity. She won't give up. Intrigued but annoyed, Robert nodded 5 minutes and then get her out. The woman who came and walked on special, crudely made crutches, going steady in spite of her disability. She was nicely dressed, her dark hair pulled back neat. What drew Robert's attention was her look, smart, strong, and somehow familiar. "Mr. Stone, thank you for seeing me," she stated, her voice clear and confident. "I'm Dr. Sarah Jones, founder of the Left Behind Children Foundation." Robert indicated a chair. "Uninterested, you have 4 minutes." Now Sarah sat down easily. "Our charity helps sick and disabled children who were rejected by their families. We're launching a big money raising campaign, and we wish to publicize business leaders who are supporting our cause." "And you think I'd be intrigued?" Because Robert sat back, already bored. Sarah smiled slightly because fixing bad things is strong. "Mr. Stone, or should I say Daddy?" The color drained from Robert's face. The pen he was holding dropped to the desk that can't be. He whispered the evening of April 17th. 25 years ago, a forest outside the city. A storm reached for the call button. A 3-year-old girl
Security,
with leg issues
I wouldn't let
left
him.
under a
The
large
newspaper
tree.
would just
Sarah's
love to
voice
know
remained
how
calm.
the great Robert
Does that
Stone
help you remember?
left behind
Robert's
his
hand
disabled daughter
shook
to die
as he reached. In a woods, I have DNA tests, birth papers. You didn't totally obliterate, and my adopted mother's full account of finding me that night. Robert's finger teetered above the button. What do you want, money? Sarah laughed, but not merrily. I'm a good doctor, Sir Stone. I don't need your money. I want equity. Yes, for me, but for all children left behind due to being too much of a bother. She put a folder in front of him. Within her letter is you'll give $50 million to Left Behind Children Foundation and public affidavit supporting our endeavor. Sign it, and your secret stays with me. This is blackmail, Robert exclaimed angrily. This is what you deserve, Sarah concluded. You left me to die because I was broken and hard to care for. The woman who found me saw worth in what you threw away. She worked 2 jobs to pay for my treatments. She believed in me when you couldn't try. Sarah stood on her crutches. You have until tomorrow to decide. After that, I tell the press about my amazing journey from abandoned disabled child to doctor, with all the facts laid out as she was leaving. Robert got his voice back. How did you make it through that night? Sarah lingered by the door. In exactly the same way I've made it through each day since, with strength you can't possibly imagine, and help from others. With honest hearts, her eyes locked onto his. By accident. I'm having dinner with Robert Jr. tonight. We met each other on a DNA site last month. He's quite keen on meet his long-lost sister. The door closed behind her, leaving Robert staring at the paper that would start his fall. No matter what he chose, his empire built after leaving that child suddenly seemed empty. The press meeting 2 days later was full of reporters. Sarah Jones stood at the front, her crutches not visible as she held the stand for support. Today, I'm happy to announce that Stone Industries has become the first big donor of Left Behind Children Foundation with a gift of $100 million. Double our initial discussion. Cameras flashed as Robert Stone himself stepped forward, his face showing ersatz concern as one who has just heard of the manner in which disabilities actually affect families. He read from scribbled-on notes, I am proud to support Dr. Jones's useful work. What the cameras could not photograph was what they whispered as they clasped hands for the picture. This doesn't make us even, Sarah said almost inaudibly through her smile. What more do you want? Robert whispered back, his smile too. Fake control of Stone Industries, she replied quietly. Robert Jr. and I had a lovely dinner. He was shocked to hear about his father's past actions, even more shocked to learn the company shares his mother had put in his name. By my math, with his help, I now own 48% of voting power. Robert's grip on her hand tightened hard. That's impossible. No, father. Sarah's smile grew real now. That's justice. You left me in a forest to establish your empire. Now I'm going to reclaim it and use it to make sure no child goes through. What I did, the forest taught me patience. 25 years is nothing. When getting even is this sweet as cameras flashed around them, showing what looked like a sentimental moment between a giving giver and an appreciative receiver. Only they knew the truth. The abandoned had returned, not just to live, but to win and take back what was rightfully hers. The firm Robert had built by giving up on his daughter now would be going to the very children he didn't think were worth loving. And as Sarah looked into the face of the man who left her for dead, she saw something she waited 25 years to see: fear. Sometimes justice doesn't win fast as a storm, but slow as a growing forest, quietly taking back everything in its path. Sad, he thought, but a necessity for his next step. Robert left Sarah beneath a big tree where the branches caught some rain. He, millionaire, leaves disabled 3-year-old girl in storm forest. 25 years later, a successful doctor on crutches comes into his office. Do you remember that rainy night? She asks, smiling. Hello, father. I've come pay for everything you took from me. Millionaire leaves his 3-year-old disabled daughter in the woods and walks off. 25 years later, rain poured hard that night. The sky darkened and thunderclapped as Robert Stone A rich businessman in an expensive suit hugged his little daughter further into the wood. Little Sarah was just 3 years old and could not walk. She was born with weak legs that didn't work properly. "Daddy, I'm cold," Sarah cried, looking up at her father with hope in her eyes. Her little arms pinched hard around his neck. Robert's face was emotionless. His business was about to close, a tremor deal that would make him even richer. His new girlfriend, Lisa, was cute and had powerful friends, but she didn't want to have to take care of another woman's handicapped child. The doctor bills were eating too much of his funds. Sarah required too much attention. "A little more," he said, icily, his voice difficult to hear. Above the storm he reached a little open area and looked around. No one knew they were there. No one would find her in the morning. She would be gone. It was nothing. Wrapped her in a thin blanket he brought. "Where is Daddy going?" Sarah asked, frightened and confused. "I'll come back soon," Robert lied, his voice trembling a little. "Stay here and be quiet." Sarah's eyes welled with tears, but she nodded. "I'll be a good girl without looking back." Robert turned and left. Each step felt heavy. The rain was so loud he couldn't hear Sarah's first cries by the time she was screaming for him. He was already in his car, driving away from the forest and from his guilt. As he got on the highway, Robert made up his head. Sarah Stone never did. He would incinerate all documents, all photos. This was to fund his improved life, not so distant. Maria Jones was driving home from her late-night shift at the small hospital, where she was a nurse. The forest road was dangerous in this weather, but she was used to it when lightning illuminated the road. She saw something move. Where should be Maria braked her car, her nurse training. More intense than her terror of the storm, with flashlight held tight in her hand, she made her way into the woods, calling out to whoever was there. The soft sound of weeping led her forward when her light fell upon the little trembling bundle beneath the tree. Maria's heart went out. "Oh no," she whispered, running to the child. "What happened to you, little one?" Sarah was close to blue from cold, her clothes wet. "Daddy," she stuttered through chattering teeth. "Daddy, come back." Maria wrapped her coat around the child and picked her up with care. "I've got you now," she said. "You're safe. 25 years on asterisk." The stone tower stood high above the center of the city. At 62, Robert Stone had it all: billions of money, friends and politics, and a reputation as a clever businessman. His wife, Lisa, had given him a son, Robert Jr., who was being taught to run the family business in his office on the top floor. Robert looked at some papers. When his secretary knocked, "Mr. Stone, there's a Dr. Sarah Jones here to see you. She doesn't have a meeting time, but says it's something to do with what does she want. She says it's personal. Something to do with a medical charity she founded. She won't leave." Intrigued, but irritated, Robert nodded 5 minutes, then get rid of her. The woman who came and walked with special crutches, moving steady. Despite her disability, she was wearing a respectable suit, her dark hair pulled back fashionably. What caught Robert's eye was her looks, intelligent, firm, and somehow recognizable to him. "Mr. Stone, thank you for seeing me," she responded, her voice clear and confident. "I'm Dr. Sarah Jones, founder of the Left Behind Children Foundation." Robert pointed towards a chair, not particularly keen. "You've got 4 minutes now." Sarah sat easily. "Our charity cares for sick and disabled children who were abandoned by their families. We're starting a big money-raising campaign, and we want to show business leaders who endorse our cause. And you'd think I'd be interested," because Robert leaned back, already bored. Sarah smiled a little because doing good after bad is strong. "Mr. Stone, or should I say, Daddy?" The color drained from Robert's face. The pen he was holding dropped to the desk. "That can't be," he whispered. The night of April 17th, 25 years ago. A forest outside the city. A storm. A 3-year-old girl with leg problems left under a big tree. Sarah's voice stayed calm. "Does that remind you?" Robert's hand shook while he reached for the call button. "Security, I wouldn't." Sarah held him back. "The newspaper would love to know how the great Robert Stone left his disabled daughter to die in a forest. I have DNA tests, birth papers. You didn't fully destroy And my foster mum's entire story of discovery that evening, Robert's finger was poised over the button. "What do you want, money?" Sarah sneered, but without joy. "I'm a good doctor, Mr. Stone. I don't need your money. I want justice, not only for me, but for all those children who were ignored because they were deemed too much effort." She thumped a folder on his desk. In it is a paper reading, "You'll give $50 million to Left Behind Children Foundation and a public statement in support of our work sign, and your secret is safe with me." "This is blackmail," Robert spat in anger. "This is what you deserve," Sarah explained. "You left me to die because I was broken and hard to care for. The lady who picked me up saw value in what you rejected. She worked 2 jobs to cover my treatments. She believed in me when you could not try." Sarah stood up, leaning on her crutches. "You have until tomorrow to decide. After that, I inform the press of my amazing journey from discarded disabled child to doctor." With every aspect exposed as she turned to leave, Robert found his voice. How did you get through that night?" Sarah stopped at the door. "The same way I've lived each day since, with strength you can't even begin to imagine, and support from people with true hearts." Her eyes clashed with his. "By way, I'm having supper with Robert Jr. tonight. We met up on a DNA website a month ago. He's really excited to be meeting his missing sister." The door closed when she departed, Robert gaping at the paper which would start his fall. He didn't know what he did. It was his choice either way. His empire built since he departed that kid. So unexpectedly, the press conference a few days later was packed with reporters. Sarah Jones in front, her crutches concealed because she had been gripping the stand for support today. "I am pleased to announce that Stone Industries is currently the first major contributor of Left Behind Children Foundation, with a donation of $100 million, twice what we initially negotiated." Cameras clicked as Robert Stone himself stepped forward, his face showing insincere concern, like a person who has just been enlightened on how disabilities really affect families. He read from scripted words, "I am proud to help Dr. Jones's significant work." What the cameras could not film was what they muttered as they embraced for the picture. "This does not make us even," Sarah said gently through her smile. "What do you want?" Robert whispered back, his smile too pretentious ownership of Stone Industries. She said gently, "Robert Jr. and I had a good dinner." He was shocked at what his father did, even more surprised to learn the company shares his mother had set his name after my count. With his help, I now control 48% of votes. Robert clinched her hand tightly. "That's not an option." "No, Father," Sarah smiled seriously. "Now that's fairness. You dropped me in a forest so I can develop your empire, and now I'm going to usurp it and use it to make sure that no child ever has to suffer the same. I went through patience taught me by the forest. 25 years is nothing when getting even is this sweet." As cameras snapped around them, capturing what seemed to be a moment of tender affection between a generous giver and grateful taker, only they knew the true tale. The abandoned had returned not only to survive, but to flourish and reclaim what was rightfully hers. The empire Robert had built by standing apart from his daughter would now profit the very children he felt weren't worth loving. And as Sarah looked into the eyes of the man who abandoned her to die, she saw something she waited 25 years to see. Fear. Sometimes justice doesn't come swiftly like a storm, but gradually like a growing forest, gradually taking back everything in its path.